friends, this is Thaddeus from Going Nerdy, and in today's episode of Books Worth Binging, I'm going to talk about Ahsoka, the novel. Now, Ahsoka, the novel is a story by E.K. Johnston. It takes place in the timeline about 1 year after the events of the Siege of Mandalore or the events of Order 66, whichever you prefer. Follows Ahsoka Tano as she kind of deals with her expulsion and survival of the Jedi Order. There's not a whole lot of survivor's guilt, but there is a whole lot of Ahsoka dealing with who is she? The concept of what do I do now? Do I lay low or do I help people? It's a very interesting time for the former Jedi. It starts off talking about what happens with Ahsoka Tano after the Battle of Mandalore, how she survives, what happens to Captain Rex, and essentially what happens to a little bit of Darth Maul. Now, what's fascinating about this is it then jumps 1 year in the future, and it is the first Empire Day. She is living on a planet called Thebeska. She's working under the alias of Ashla, and she's kind of this like mechanic working with this family of smugglers. Now, they have a legitimate business, but she's kind of just their mechanic. They've gotten to know Ahsoka. They're friends with Ahsoka or Ashla at this time. And there's even a moment in this beginning, this opening chapter, where Ahsoka talks about how she notices that one of the younglings of this family is actually Force sensitive. And in an attempt to kind of like protect her, she decides, hey, I need to leave this planet so if they find me, they don't also find this kid. Now, she goes to this outer moon called Rayeta. Now, Rayeta is essentially the farm belt, right? If you're living in the United States and watching this, it's like Kansas or Iowa, or it's a Midwestern city, but it's in the outer rim. All it does is build farms, right? It makes nutrients, it makes plants. It's this backwater, nothing. And I'm not saying that Kansas or Iowa are that way, but this planet is. And while she's there, she kind of builds up this, again, reputation of being a mechanic, being good with fixing things. And while she's there, the Empire comes in and is like, hey, this is a planet that no one's going to care about. We're going to use all of your equipment, all of your land, and we're going to farm nutrients for our own planet. Now, this upsets the people. The people are like, we need to riot. We won't let the Empire, do this. And Ahsoka eventually kind of lets herself be known as, hey, look, I was a former Jedi. Or more specifically, I fought in the Clone Wars. She doesn't say that she's a Jedi at this time. And during the events, she starts building this little bit of this resistance. Now, this resistance goes through and it kind of starts doing some small things. It kind of is trying to like, hey, she's trying to make, Ahsoka is trying to make the Empire say, this planet's not worthwhile. But the people of this planet are like, we're going to go big or go home kind of a thing. And they decide to really, give it to the Empire. Well, that backfires. And it actually outs Ahsoka as being a Jedi. She now has to flee Rayeta. And she goes back to this first planet, Thebeska. Now, there she gets back in with this family. But the youngling tells her, hey, while you were gone, there was this shadow that I kept feeling. Now, turns out the shadow is actually the sixth brother. You might know the sixth brother as being a member of the Lord Vader's Inquisitorial Squad. Now, he was there because there was, someone who noticed that this youngling had the Force. Now, he's, after some investigative work, he figures out that it's to this family that Ahsoka had been working with, right? So he was about to figure it out. But when Ahsoka had, saved that girl back on Rayeta, he said, oh, I'm going to bring in a Jedi. And so he flies out to Rayeta and he starts terrorizing the people there. Ahsoka then discovers that this family, this smuggler family, is not necessarily bad smugglers. They're good smugglers. They're smuggling good things. They're actually helping the people of the galaxy. They're helping the people of the Empire. who are being starved. They're essentially a supply chain management group for the rebellion and pre-rebellion, right? This is anyone. But a lot of these efforts, a lot of this help has been noticed by the Empire, specifically a former person of a senator who is a little more rebellious than others, that being Bail Organa. Now, Bail notices that a lot of these Imperial shipments are being thwarted, or a lot of these things are happening, and he's like, ooh, this looks like the work of a Jedi. And so he goes out and he actually meets Ahsoka. And he says, Ahsoka, look, let me tell you what I'm doing here. Let me tell you what's going on. And Bail recruits Ahsoka. Now, it's not immediate. There's some back and forth there, but it happens. But in this back and forth courting period between Bail and Ahsoka, Bail tells Ahsoka, hey, there's this planet Raida that, probably is not looking super hot. And he tells Ahsoka, hey, this leader that you saved the first time, well, she's back in custody and she probably needs some saving. And so Ahsoka decides, hey, I'm going to go fight this sixth brother, this Imperial guy. Now, here's the problem. Ahsoka doesn't have lightsabers, right? At the beginning of the book, you find out that Ahsoka has faked her death, and that she decides that she needs to build her own lightsabers back. Now, she goes to Ilum, but Ilum has been destroyed by the Empire, so she's like, well, crap, man, this sucks. So the Force guides her back to Raida and says, hey, look, go there. Everything's going to be okay. Now, as she gets back to Raida, what happens? Well, she faces off against the sixth brother and actually disarms him and uses his own lightsabers against him, and instead of actually just de-bleeds his crystals. Now, this is the first time in the new Star Wars canon where they actually introduced the concept of bleeding a crystal, which is, taking a crystal that is traditional and turning it red, right? Whereas back in the day, in the old canon, there were red crystals or there were synthetic crystals. These are crystals that were tainted or ruined to an extent and then turned to the dark side. This is her undoing that. And this is also the place where Ahsoka gets the white lightsabers. Now, this book's a very interesting book. Now, it's a junior novel. It's pretty fascinating. If the hardback edition is 360 some odd pages, the actual story, the audiobook, which is read by Ashley Eckstein, the Ahsoka Tano, is about 8 hours, which is shorter than your traditional book. And it's a very interesting story. It's a very quick story. If you binge an entire day, then boom, right there. This is one day of listening and or reading. But it's a very fascinating look at the insight that Ahsoka is going through to shortly after the Order 66. It talks about how she's not sure what happens to Anakin Skywalker. It talks about how she's not sure what happens to really any of the other Jedi that are out there. And what her initial role as Fulcrum in the rebellion is going to be. And it's a very fascinating concept. It also focuses very heavily on the concept that there are people still out there looking for Force-sensitive younglings. And those Force-sensitive younglings are then brought over to the Empire. Now, that's not something new. If you watch Star Wars Rebels, you know that that's what the Night Brothers and Night Sisters did, the Inquisitorial Squad did. But it gives you a very real look at how they went about that. Now, it's a very fascinating story. It's a very interesting story. The audiobook's great because, again, it's read by Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka Tano, and it's done in a way that it keeps you kind of like on the edge of your seat. Now, it is a junior grade novel, so it does have storyline. It does have some moments of, this is very young people against the old people. It very much has a feeling or a vibe geared towards a younger audience, but it is still an interesting story for those who are a little past the tween years. If you are interested and you are looking for a new book to read, listen to, check out the links in the section below. You can find a 1-month trial of Audible. You get 2 free books. Cancel within a month, you get to keep the books. If you are interested, this is a very, very fascinating story, and it does give some context about Ahsoka during the times between Order 66 and her emergence as Fulcrum in the Star Wars Rebels cartoon. If you are interested, check out the section below. If you've read the book, please let me know what you guys think. This is a very fascinating story, and again, it dives into her mindset. Now, let me know what you guys think. Check out the links in the section below. This has been Thaddeus from Going Nerdy. Like, subscribe, share. Click that little bell to be notified anytime a video like this gets posted. And as always, my friends, smile and stay nerdy.